Waterford. Live from Waterford and Dungarvan, this is Waterford at 1 News.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Tomkins. Today's top stories. Gardaí are investigating if a lorry found with 39 bodies inside in Essex this morning travelled through Ireland. Fine Gael will run 3 candidates for the Waterford constituency in the next general election. The Taoiseach says he supports a proposed Brexit extension to the end of January. And in sport, Waterford FC's owner says he's unaware of any bid by John Delaney to lead a takeover bid for the club. Gardaí are investigating if a lorry found with 39 bodies inside in Essex this morning travelled through Ireland. A 25-year-old lorry driver from Northern Ireland has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Shane Beattie reports.
Gardaí say they're investigating if the container travelled through Ireland, and while they haven't received a formal request for assistance, they are carrying out their own inquiries. They're trying to establish if it came from Bulgaria onto France, through Rosslare and onto Dublin Port before arriving in Holyhead. A 25-year-old man from Northern Ireland has been arrested on suspicion of murder after the discovery of the bodies of 38 adults and a teenager. Detective Chief Constable Pippa Mills from Essex Police gave this update.
Shortly before 1:40am today, we received reports that a number of people had been found inside a lorry's container at the Waterglade Industrial Park on Eastern Avenue in Grays. We believe the lorry is from Bulgaria and came into the UK through Holyhead on the 19th of October.
Aidan Flynn, General Manager for the Freight Transport Association Ireland, says if the truck came through Ireland, the people may have been on board for 3 or 4 days.
Obviously, for people getting on board that, they wouldn't have long to survive in a cold, chilled environment. So actually, if it was coming from Bulgaria via Ireland, you're talking at least 3 or 4 days in the back of a trailer.
All 39 people were pronounced dead at the scene, which remains sealed off this lunchtime.
Fine Gael will run 3 candidates for the Waterford constituency in the next general election. Last night, the National Executive announced that Councillors Damien Geoghegan and John Cummins will contest the election alongside Senator Paudie Coffey, who has been previously selected. The party's only outgoing TD in Waterford, John Deasy, announced recently that he wouldn't be running again, with Fine Gael saying at the time that they wanted to hold on to his seat and add a second at the general election. Fine Gael Senator Paudie Coffey says he wasn't aware that his party planned to add 2 additional names.
Well, I wasn't until last night, but to be fair, I did know that both Damien and John had indicated that they wanted to be candidates in the next general election, and I want to congratulate both of them because they're 2 very good candidates. And in fairness, both of them went before the Fine Gael convention last year, and that was a convention where the Fine Gael membership in Waterford selected myself to contest the election on behalf of the party. And it was decided at that time that there would be additional candidates added to the ticket.
He admitted that running 3 candidates for Waterford will be a challenge for Fine Gael.
It's certainly going to be very challenging, but all 3 of us will certainly do our best to maximise the Fine Gael vote right across the city and county of Waterford. I've represented all parts of County Waterford, both east and west, for over 10 years now, and I want to continue doing so. Those that made the decision were the Fine Gael National Executive, and I presume they were looking at the local elections where Fine Gael had a good vote here in Waterford, city and county. They probably want to build on that. The aim here is to at least win 1 seat in Waterford and to challenge for a second.
Meanwhile, Councillor Damien Geoghegan says he anticipates a general election will be called in the springtime.
There's a lot of speculation at the moment as to when the general election will be, as to whether it'll be in November or just before Christmas, or will it go into the new year. I personally think that it may run into the new year. It all hinges on what's happening in Westminster right now, and what we've been hearing from both Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin in the past couple of my bet would be on a spring election.
The loss of over 300 jobs in Cork has been described as a devastating blow for the region. Pharmaceutical company Novartis announced the cuts this morning during a meeting with staff in Ringaskiddy. SIP2 representatives say they're seeking an urgent meeting with the management of Novartis. The news comes a day after it was confirmed 500 jobs are to go in Clare at Molex, an electric components company. Councillor Seamus McGrath, who represents the Ringaskiddy area, says the news came as a shock to the employees of Novartis.
I think many of them have been here since the beginning, and that makes it all the more difficult for them. They've been long-standing employees of the company, and it's been a good company. It's been a good employer, and we just hope that the company engages fully with the government, with the IDA and with authorities to try and reduce the impact here and to try and work as closely as possible to deal with today's news and to try and work our way through.
The Taoiseach says he supports a proposed Brexit extension to the end of January. Leo Varadkar spoke to European Council President Donald Tusk this morning. Our political correspondent Sean Defoe has more.
Donald Tusk is ringing around EU leaders asking what they think of a Brexit extension until January 31st, 2020 after Boris Johnson's attempt to force the withdrawal agreement through Parliament failed. Leo Varadkar told him he's in favour of the extension, but it will also allow the UK to leave before January 31st if the British Parliament can get the Brexit deal passed in the meantime. EU ambassadors are going to discuss it in Brussels later this evening. A decision on an extension, though, isn't expected today, and the EU is hoping to get written approval for it from leaders rather than having to call another EU Council summit for next week.
Two forensic psychiatrists are in agreement that a woman was suffering from a mental disorder when she killed her toddler daughter last year. The woman, who cannot be named by court order, has pleaded not guilty by reasons of insanity. Our courts correspondent Frank Rainey has this report, which some listeners may find distressing.
Yesterday, the jury heard how the woman suffocated her 3-year-old daughter with a pillow in their living room in February 2018. Following her arrest, she told Gardaí she'd been thinking about it for a few days beforehand. She told psychiatrists she did it because she felt she couldn't give her the life she deserved due to what one medical expert described as an unrealistic and pessimistic view about her child's prospects. The court heard she was awaiting the results of a psychological assessment on her daughter in the wake of concerns that she had autism. Following her own online research, her mother became convinced and obsessed that she had a severe form of the condition. Psychiatrists for both sides concluded that she was having a severe depressive episode with psychotic features when she killed her. The jurors will soon be asked to consider whether to acquit her, convict her of murder, or return the special verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity as per her plea. Frank Rainey, the Central Criminal Court.
Waterford councillors have been criticised for objecting to local authority accommodation during the teeth of a housing crisis. 3 social housing schemes and 2 traveller accommodation developments came before the council this week. However, many of these were heavily opposed, with just 2 of the 5 developments receiving approval. The Green Party's Mark O'Cahasig was the only councillor who approved each accommodation scheme at this week's meeting. One traveller accommodation scheme would have granted families living on a roadside the means to live on a properly serviced site. Councillor O'Cahasig says the objections send a bad message.
It's not so long ago since Enda Kenny stood to a standing ovation inside the Dáil, having proclaimed traveller ethnicity. Members within this chamber are now proposing to tell travellers what their preferred accommodation type is. We're prepared to tell them literally that we are happy to have 7 families on the side of the road rather than proceed in our planning applications. What message are we sending to those people who have spending 7 years plus on social housing lists when every single proposal to house people who are in dire need of housing is fought tooth and nail within this chamber?
And finally, a man who played a vital role in Ireland's response to the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean Sea will present a talk in Waterford tomorrow evening. Lieutenant Commander Michael Brunicardi was deployed to the Mediterranean in 2015 as part of Operation Pontus. He'll give a lecture in the Medieval Museum at 7:30 as part of the Waterford Treasures talks. Rosemary Ryan, who works in the Bishop's Palace in Waterford Treasures, says it'll be a fascinating evening.
We're really looking forward to Thursday evening when the captain of the LE James Joyce is going to give us a talk. He's the officer commanding Lieutenant Commander Mike Brunicardi, and he was responsible for the Operation Pontus in 2015 when they rescued a huge number of migrants in the Mediterranean. The Irish services rescued 9,000 migrants in that year alone.
WLR Sport.
To soccer first, and Waterford FC's owner Lee Power says he's unaware of any bid by John Delaney to lead a takeover for the club. He told the Irish Times that he hasn't spoken to the FAI's former chief executive since he parted company with the association. There have been rumours that John Delaney was attempting to put together a consortium to buy Waterford FC amid speculation about Lee Power's commitment since the club missed out on a place in the Europa League due to a licensing issue. The Irish Times reports that the return of John Delaney to the game may well be prohibited, however, under the terms of the departure deal from the association. Elsewhere, Waterford FC under-19 coach Gary Hunt says Monday night's final against Galway United in Terryland Park will be played under lights. The final will kick off at 6 o'clock on Bank Holiday Monday.
No, I was speaking with Pat Duffy and the FAI, and they do have a little bit of a thing that they want to really showcase it, and they feel that having finals under lights is something that makes it a little bit of prestige about it. So look, I was just happy to go with them and work with them all season like we have done, and we'll be ready whenever the final is on, so.
Staying with soccer, and holders Liverpool go to Genk tonight looking to make it back-to-back wins in Group E. Midfielder James Milner is expecting a tough task.
They're strong at home, they're a strong side anyway. I think they had a good European campaign last year, and obviously after a good result against Napoli they're going to be full of confidence and wanting to put on a good performance and be a big test for us.
Chelsea will aim to do likewise when they play away to Ajax in the earlier kick-off in Group H. That's at 5 to 6 this evening. And finally, in horse racing, Dungarvan jockey Sean Houlihan was on the mark at Worcester this afternoon, guiding 25-1 outsider Stupid Cupid to an all-the-way success in the opening contest. That's the latest on WLR. Our next bulletin here